Welcome to the Acrylic Portrait Painting Challenge Masterclass, lesson number 8, bringing your portrait home. I'm so excited here to help you bring your portrait to a successful completion, to bring it home, so to speak, so that it's finished and you can sign it and be proud of what you've created. We're really close in this painting, and some of the folks in our group have already finished their portraits, and that's fine. I've been a little stuck on this last leg of the portrait for a while, but I'm excited to show you those final nuances to finish your painting well and sign it. And this is where we're at right now. And we've got a lot of shading, a lot of depth built up, a lot of contrast. So it's just getting in those final little details, you know, crisping up the edges a little bit, adding some highlights, making them pop, resolving any unresolved areas. And at some point you just have to call your portrait finished. It's not easy to do. You could probably work on it for days and days and days, but there comes a point where you just have to say, it's done. And I'm gonna put this on my wall or hand it to the person who's supposed to receive it, or put it up for sale, or whatever the case may be for you. Anyway, I'm excited, and if you haven't taken the portrait challenge, you can still do that. I have a link for it below in the description of the video. realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-painting-challenge. You can take the challenge. It's not too late. But today we're just going to be finishing the portrait, bringing it home. And I want to again congratulate you. All of you who have taken this challenge. You've just done such an outstanding job. In our Facebook group, Realistic Acrylic Portraits, there have been such phenomenal paintings here of this horse and rider. I've been blown away by the detail, the form, the contrast, the snow, just how it looks like you could walk right into it. So fantastic work. Even if you struggled with your portrait, it's still worthwhile that you did this, because you gained skills you're going to be able to utilize in portraits from here on out. And if you can do one good portrait, you can do another and another and another. So anyway, I'm so excited and happy for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your progress as you continue to paint. But for now, I would like to just open up with a word of prayer, and then we're going to dive right into the painting process. We'll finish up the video with an opportunity where I'll invite you to work with me to continue this relationship of painting, and there's so much more I'd like to teach you. But let's open up with a word of prayer. So Father, I ask a blessing on this video. I pray that you'd help me to be able to show the students the final steps here in finishing this portrait. Thank you, Lord, for the skills, the dedication, the time that they put in, and I pray that they would experience the fruit of their labors by having a beautiful painting they can proudly say, I did this, and show it to friends and family. And it would propel them into whatever else they'll be doing, whether doing paintings of family members or commissioned portraits, or even portraits for art shows. I just pray that you bless this time of painting and help us to finish it well in Jesus' name. All right, so what we're going to be doing is basically just tightening up some of the details. So we're going to dive in just a little bit closer, and I think I'm going to maybe take a little bit of a look at his jacket, tighten a few things up there, and seeing what needs to be done. We got the buttons looking pretty good. Some of the edges need to be cleaned up in the portrait. Like the lapel could have a little more contrast on it. So let's bring that out. I'm going to zoom it in even more. But there's just an area right here that we need to darken a bit. So let's go to the palette, and we're going to take a little bit of burnt sienna, because I see that color. It looks kind of red-orangey. And I'm going to just take a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of raw umber dark, and then some naphtha red, just a tiny bit of that. Just want to make sure I can get some out of here. It kind of dried up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply that. It should be just about the right value there. It needs to be just a little darker on that edge. Yep, that worked well. If you're curious about the color, I'll zoom in here so you can see white card, and then this is what we've got for the color right there. All right, so I always like to see, is there anywhere else where I can utilize this color? And I could just do a little bit of work on that scarf, just put a couple final details in there. So we'll just kind of fill it in a little bit darker, kind of get that pattern of his scarf. There we go. Look at his face and see, is there anything in there that we could do to embellish it? I think that's pretty tight. That draw band on top of the hat maybe could be tightened just a little bit. I'll take a little bit of raw umber dark and some raw sienna. Mix that together. And I think we can add that just to this area here. And we're using a size 2 round brush right now. One of my favorite brushes. Just to get a little more definition on that. I'll put a little gradation on the top of that rim. Check the edges, make sure they're nice and crisp. That all looks good. If there's any unresolved areas, you just want to check that, and it might vary. You know, for your portrait, it's going to be a little different than what I have in mind. So that's the main thing you want to do, is just check your edges and make sure, you know, everything's filled in as it should be. During the painting process, you know, overlapping the background and painting several layers, it cuts into some of your subject, you know, the foreground a little bit. By the way, I'm using raw sienna, ultramarine blue, and raw umber dark. And let's just scoot down a bit. But anyway, you'll have some edges that need to be tightened up because of the glazing process. In traditional painting techniques, you would paint the background first and you paint the subject on top opaquely, and then you generally wouldn't have the edges, you know, being an issue. But here we've cut around the horse many times and that kind of thing, so there are some edges that generally have to be cleaned up. Okay, I'm looking at any final details I want to do on the horse, like on his eye, for example. We could get that highlight just a little bit brighter. So I'm going to take some titanium white. Now, I don't want to use just straight titanium white. I want to dilute it with just a little bit of matte medium and maybe add a tiny bit of organic orange just to warm it up a bit. And then it's not quite stark white. But I look at my reference photo and I see that that reflection is just a little bit brighter. So we do want to make sure we get that in. We want to kind of nuance out any edges on the eye that need to be done. There's a little bit of the sclera showing here in the bottom. Add a little bit of this white, but then kind of touch it with my finger and tone it down. I'll add a little bit of a highlight right here on top. Yeah, and I think that helps. That gives it a little more life. And I just want to make sure that the eye's not too big, so let's add a little bit of this color to the edge of that eye there. All right. Now, one of the things I notice on my painting is that the part of the bridle or whatever that is needs to be darkened more. And so let's go ahead and take some raw umber dark and ultramarine blue. We'll take a little bit of naphthyl red. We're going to darken this significantly. And we want to get a nice color that we can just paint right along here. Now I'll show it to you on the white card so you can see it. So it's really dark. And maybe I'll add just a little bit of burnt sienna to it, just so it's not quite so dark. We have it just a little bit lighter. Pull a little of that raw sienna color into it. Okay. So I'm going to go across here and just start darkening the strap. Thicken it just a bit. And I notice it's not exactly the same color. Now you'd think that this is all one color, but it's actually a little lighter right there. So I always try to look at the reference photo and really see what's going on and try to get those nuances in. We can see, if you look close, it's just a little bit lighter there. Just a bit behind the ears. We just suggest that in. I'm going to take this opportunity to darken the mouth just a little bit. All right. So I think that helped. Looking at any other areas that could use some embellishment. I'm just going to rinse off my brush and kind of make a variation of this color. I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue, add that to this mixture. And then I'm going to use that color, and I want to go to the back and just put in a little bit of an adjustment here. Make sure we have kind of the shapes and everything ironed out for this back part. Just a little bit right there. Put in any final contrasts on the arm, because that area is important. I do see that I have the buckle that needs to be done, and right now the buckle, we're talking about this area right here on the stirrup, is all painted just basically by negative spaces. Now I need to come back in with a positive shape and put in the buckles. So titanium white, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and maybe just a bit of raw sienna. Touch of naphtha red. Okay, I need to get that just a little whiter. Looking kind of for like a warm gray. Let's see how that looks. Pop it in right here. Yeah. So it's just kind of a rectangular shape, and there's a little tiny, hinge that goes over it. Whatever that is called, a little peg that sticks out and holds it into place. So we've got that. And then we up here. Oh, and let me show this color to you on the white card so you can see it. So it's just kind of a really light gray, light warm gray. But we want to make sure we got this buckle here, which should be a little lighter. I'll need to go back on top of that, probably something else. Are there any other buckles we're missing? There is one on the other side. I don't know if this is in the camera shot, but right here, there's one. Let's go over it like that. And I probably could hit it with a little bit of a lighter color too. So now that these have dried, we can go on top with that lighter white. That's the white that we used for the eye of the horse, for the reflection on the eye. We'll put this just like right in the corner here. So just a couple little highlights on this buckle just to give it more glint. Just like that. And then I'll put that on the other side. Gonna make that pop a little bit more as well. Yeah, and I think that just adds something to it. Now I want to grab some of this darker color here Mix some ultramarine blue into it. A little bit of that grayish color that we used for the buckles. Get something that's kind of now, it's dark, but it's a little lighter than the previous color. What I want to do is just pop that in right up here. Zoom up the camera a little bit. And right inside of that buckle. Yep. And then I'm going to put a little shading below it and above it. And let's just darken the white of the rope as well. Just kind of fill that in just like that. Make sure we have a little bit of shading here around the rope. Any additional shadows that I might want to put into the mane of the horse, we'll do that. Like, I like to just add a shadow within the shadow and darken some of the spots that I've got that are already dark and just push them a little bit more. Then sometimes when you do that, the midtones look a little bit light. So we might need to, say, take a little bit of ultramarine blue, mix it in. Oops, sorry about that. Mix it into this color we have right here. This color that I used for the buckle initially, that kind of warm gray. Add a little more ombre dark to it so it's not too blue. Okay, and then this is going to go just in a couple of key spots on the mane. So darken that a little bit more, get a little more gradation. Put a little of that on the top. And a little differentiation right here. Just develop some more shading. That's good. All right. And now we'll add a little bit of shading here. And bring that hair down just a little further. I want to push this more right there and then a little darker here. Push this mid-tone a little bit more. All right, and then I'm going to do a highlight right on the top rim of the mane. Right along here, I just want to lighten up this edge. So we'll take some titanium white and maybe just a tiny bit of phthalo blue. And we mix matte medium into it, make it very, very faint. All right, so let's show this to you on the white cards. You can see what that should look like. You can see as it crosses over the black line, it's got some opacity to it. It had enough opacity to obscure that black line pretty well. I'd say it's about 50%. But I won't know until I try it if it's going to work. I think I can work with this. I can dab it, and then I can soften the effect of it. That way then I can go a little bit stronger right here in this area, but then over there not quite as strong. And that corresponds with what we see in our reference photo, which I'm going to show you here. So you can see in the reference photo how it's lighter right there, right? And then it's darker right here on the bottom. So the mane contrasts the main body of the horse by being darker here, but lighter up there. So that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. But if you can capture that nuance, that's going to really, really increase the realism. It'll be one of many things that can increase the realism for you. That was too strong. I'll just add a little matte medium, which will kind of thin it out, make it more translucent, just like that. And then we can kind of fade this in and get that nice effect. Yeah. I'm going to have just a little bit lighter right here. There we are. Okay, a little bit lighter right there. Okay. Wanted to have one breakaway strand right there that kind of flows down. And let's use this color, just add a couple of highlights in a few key areas, just to kind of give it a little bit of a glisten. And if your white has a little bit of phthalo blue, that'll look nice. Just a little bit right in there. All right, that's good. A little highlight right here. There we go. All right. I realize we have a buckle that I missed down here. We got to get that in. So that's a gold color. We'll take titanium white, and we're going to add a little bit of Indian yellow. Actually, a larger amount of Indian yellow. It's got to be pretty substantial. That'll be the main color, just those two colors. I'm going to see how that works. Let's move the camera down there. And we'll just kind of put that highlight in right here. Okay, I see. That color should have been different. Let's add some raw sienna to it. We'll just kind of tone that down. Maybe even a little bit of raw or dark. Just tone it down a bit. Let's spray my palette quickly. Everything moist makes it so much easier to get the details in when your paint is very, very moist. Okay, so I think this will be better as a base color. And then we can just let that dry and hit that with a highlight, and that should really pop. So let's mix a highlight, taking titanium white and Indian yellow, just those two colors. And then this should be dry, or at least mostly dry, and then you can add a highlight right there. And that should do it. You could get a little bit more warmth with some Indian yellow, maybe just a bit of organic orange. And then we'll just kind of, excuse me, I'll show this color to you first on the white card. That's what it looks like, this warmer color. This is that base color for the buckle. And then the highlight color right there, just really, really light. But this particular color here is just to give us a little halation, make it pop, and then get that little piece that sticks down from the buckle. There. And let's just finish up this kind of strap thing behind it. There we are. A little bit of shading too. It's this darker color. I'm just grabbing a dark color right here. This is one we mixed from before, this dark brown. And then for that, I just want to basically edge this strap here, just the far left side, and really indicate that there is some shading here, that the sun is casting a shadow on that left side. Okay, we'll darken this a little bit as well. There. Now let's look for some opportunities to add a little bit of contrast on these little straps that are sticking down. Just get those final details in. There we go. All right. So I think we're getting pretty close here. Just looking to see if there's any final details. Let's get let's get the fingernails of the rider in just a little bit more clearly. All right, and what we'll do is we'll take some titanium white, a little bit of organic orange. And I think just those two colors I want to do is just kind of pop in a little bit of a lighter color for his fingernails. And I'll put it in on the top of the thumb. And then the fingernails will be portrayed not only by that color, but also by the shadow above it, showing kind of the cuticle. So burnt sienna, raw umber dark, a little bit of naphtha red. We can get in that nice shadow color there. And just pop that in right there. All right, that's good. All right. Lastly, I want to look at the bottom of the ports down here and just check and see if we've got everything going here in the snow that needs to be there. I just want to bump up some of the contrast a little bit higher. So I'm going to pull from some of these darker colors I've got here. And I'm going to just add a little bit. It's like a dark brown. You can find any dark brown in your palette or mix something new with raw umber dark and ultramarine blue and burnt sienna if you need to. We're just getting in a few of these last final contrasts to really help, the hooves and everything stick out against the snow. Just give it that last final sense of contrast. All right, so we got a little bit of a darker area there and there, some of these spots. And then the snow itself is casting a slight shadow over him. So I'm going to take this kind of warm gray color up here, add a little raw sienna to it. And I'm going to just let that be cast over the front part of the hoof. You got the snow that's just casting a little shadow there. All right. A little bit of a highlight here. That's good. And then I'm going to zoom up here and just do a little bit more work on that rope. So I want to take some titanium white with just a little bit of Indian yellow, add a bit of raw sienna, a little more titanium white. And we're going to just do a little work on that rope and just add a tiny bit of highlight right here on the top. Just help it to stand out a bit more. Pull the brown color, lighten up the dark stripes, making them a little lighter. There we go. All right, and with that, I call this painting done. It's time to sign it. So to sign your portrait, you want to look for a good spot, usually in the lower right corner, about an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches away from the edge. Yeah, and it can depend. I'd say about an inch from the edge, just so that the rebe, the little overhanging part of the frame, doesn't cover over it. So, you know, if we look at it specifically, and I'm not saying you have to actually measure, you know, the edge, but you can see this is an inch right here. So we have an inch right there. And that generally is a good place. If you get too close to the edge, it just doesn't look as good, and the edge of your frame, the rebe, can cover it up. So inch to an inch and a half, depending on how large your portrait is. But for a 16 by 20, inch away from both the bottom edge and then the right edge is fine. Now, sometimes you might want to sign your portrait on the left-hand side if you have a lot of visual weight on the right-hand side. That would put it out of balance. In the case of this portrait, however, we have a big vacant spot on the right-hand side, so this is going to be the best place to sign it. So I'm just going to estimate, you know, about an inch from the bottom. And again, if you want to mark it off, you can just put a little hash mark that's kind of a similar color to what you're painting with. You know, and I have my little mark right there. And then I'm going to mix a color that's very similar to what I've been painting with. So I like to go with something a little darker than the background. Add a little white to it because the opacity helps it to cover better. So it's good if you can make this particular mixture more opaque, but very, very fluid. I want it to be very fluid so it flows right off of your brush. So I'm going to take the ultramarine blue, add a little raw umber dark to it, bit of alizarin crimson. Again, I want kind of a bluish color that's similar to the snow and not too dark. So add a little more white. I don't like it to really stand out too much. I'll rinse off my brush just so I have a clean slate, and then add the paint. I'm going to use the size 2 brush. You can use that or something even smaller if you have it, but I really like how this brush has been working for me, so I'm going to just stick with it. And I'm just going to start signing right here. And this is how I sign my name. I just sign it in cursive and I just put in my full name. I used to do just the first initial, but I figured I would just sign it with my full name. Just the way I sign my checks. Although I sign my checks a lot more sloppy than this. And I like it to be legible. And then I like to put in the year below. There we go. Just like that. All right, and we have a signed painting. So that's it. All right, so man, this has been a pleasure. It's been a joy to be able to show you how to do this painting. Really enjoyed the process. And look at what we accomplished here. We have a beautiful, beautiful painting, something that we can be proud of, something you can hang on your wall, give as a beautiful gift to a friend. And you were able to do this. So high fives to you, congratulations. And I'm looking forward to teaching you more. And to that end, if you'd like to continue on this journey, painting portraits with me, I have so much more to show you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you would consider checking out my new online school, my new online group called Acrylic Portrait Academy. It's so new, it's like the name is still trying to roll off of my tongue. But Acrylic Portrait Academy, that's something I just created. It used to be called the Realistic Acrylic All Access Membership, but the Acrylic Portrait Academy is like that, but even better. It's on a new platform where the classes, where the the teaching, the videos, events calendar, chat, discussion group is all in one spot. So it used to be where you'd have the classes, in a separate website, then you'd have to access a Facebook group, and it was really hard to kind of link them together and get that communication going. Now they're all in one seamless kind of group. It has its own app you can download to your mobile device of choice, and you can literally interact with any of the videos, leave a comment, you can chat with fellow members in the school, very much like Facebook, but it's on a separate platform from Facebook. And I'm excited to teach you the best parts of portrait painting, specifically a new framework that I developed recently called 7 Steps to Building an Incredible Acrylic Portrait. And that's going to be the framework or the learning path within Acrylic Portrait Academy, because it's easy to feel stuck when you're painting, to not know, man, am I getting the skin tones right? But maybe you got the skin tones right, but the proportions are off, or the likeness is off, or the anatomy is off. And just like building a house, you want to build everything step by step. That's what we're going to be doing with this new framework, 7 Steps to Building an Incredible Acrylic Portrait. Step number 1, we're going to be helping you get your supplies set up, talking all about paint brushes and mediums and that kind of thing, just kind of laying the foundation and starting from ground zero. And that is actually called Step 0. Then Step 1, going to help you to create a compelling composition, because composition is so important. Getting your subject matter in the right place, and the rule of thirds and the golden proportion and all these things, getting your composition to look pleasing to the eye. If you don't have a good composition, even if you have the detail, skin tone, shading, it's just not going to be a successful portrait. So getting a compelling composition. Step number 2, we're going to help you with an accurate anatomy. Anatomy is so important. Getting the eyes in the right place, nose, mouth, understanding 3/4 angles and various views of the head, and really making sure anatomically your portrait's correct. Because again, if you get your skin tones correct, excellent shading, but you don't have the anatomy, it's not going to be a successful portrait. We're going to help you in Step 3 to lock in a true to life likeness. So once you get the anatomy right, you have it looking, like a person, eyes, nose, mouth, proportional in the right place. Then we help you to dial in those specific features that make a person look like them. If you're trying to paint a portrait of your grandmother or your niece or somebody you want it to look just like them, that is super important. And we'll help you do that. And then step number 4 in the framework of building an incredible acrylic portrait is to measure, place, and build up your values. You want to make sure you have tonal values, a range of light and dark, with a great amount of contrast. The portrait pops. You want to make sure it's accurate. A lot of times I like to say that color gets the credit, but value actually does the work behind the scenes. So you want to make sure you get those values right, the lights and darks. Step number 5 is going to be identifying, mixing, and applying correct color. Skin tones. That's something that artists really, really struggle with, and that's probably the number 1 thing they ask me about for help is skin tones. We'll get into that. We'll work on color theory, and we're going to help you create skin tones that look true to life. So when I say we, I'm talking about me, but also the artists in the forum as well that will be interacting with you and helping you, because we have many experienced artists in our group that have been painting portraits for years now using this glazing technique method that I teach. Step number 6, help you smooth out shading and blending and nuances. And that's where you really make that portrait start to look so realistic, when you can get that smooth sense of shading, that smooth sense of transition, where it just, looks like a Leonardo da Vinci or a Rembrandt. At least we're shooting for that. But where you really get that sense that a person's there, and the gradual shifts, from dark to light and one color to another. Many artists struggle with blending. And I'm going to teach you some specific techniques for acrylic that can make your portraits look very, very close to oil paintings. And then step number 7, we're gonna finish with believable texture and amazing detail. And so that's the kind of the icing on the cake. You know, if we go to the building a house analogy, you put down your foundation with concrete, get up those studs, and then, you know, you start putting in maybe some plumbing and electrical, and then drywall. And, you know, the details kind of like finishing up where, you know, you're doing your wallpaper or you're painting, or you're putting up various adornments, cabinetry, crown molding, whatever it might be, carpeting, to really finish it and make it look like home. And we want to help you bring your portrait home with that believable texture and amazing detail. So this new framework, 7 Steps to Building an Incredible Acrylic Portrait, it's something that I'm excited to do. I started by teaching that a while ago. I did the initial framework and kind of brought it out to everybody, but I would like to actually get the specific lessons inside that framework, and we'll go deep. Start off at the kind of 10,000 foot level, but we'll dive in deep and give you a learning path so that wherever you're at in your portrait painting, you'll be able to fit right in, and you'll be able to you know, get up to speed and get better at the things you're struggling with, or maybe just kind of adjust and get a little more proficient at the things you're already doing well with. Whatever the case, I invite you to join Acrylic Portrait Academy. You can join in the link below in the video description. It is realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-academy. Again, realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-academy. Join me in Acrylic Portrait Academy, and you can try it out, see if it works for you. If not, you can cancel anytime, no big deal. But I would love to be able to teach you within there to paint a portrait you can be proud of. If you're proud of this portrait here, let's keep that momentum going. Let's do some more work together. I'll show more lessons, and I'm even thinking of possibly doing a painting every month or every other month to kind of give you momentum and something you can keep doing to keep busy and growing in your skills. Well, anyway, the opportunity's there to work with you, and I would love to see you inside. If you have any questions, let me know below in this video. For now, I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you for trusting me to be able to teach you during this challenge. I hope you enjoyed it. I really have enjoyed teaching you. I've enjoyed seeing your portraits and your progress and your excitement. So just looking forward to keeping that going. And thank you so much. Let's continue this discussion, this dialogue, and God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.